Hey, so before I start the panel, I'll kick it off with like a short presentation on wallet security, just going through an overview of the different architectures of wallets, because I think wallet architecture is like very underexplored. I think we have this slide.
You should be terrified because the wallet might not show up.
Yeah. There we go. Oh, this is fancy. Okay. So usually we think about security in terms of, at least with DeFi, I think most consumers are thinking, okay, how many audits has it had? This is like a metric, and it's really focused a lot on implementation. With wallets, the implementation can be changed. It's not hard-coded into a smart contract. With wallets, the paradigm, audits are extremely important in both situations. And implementation is extremely important in both situations. With wallet architecture is also kind of a sort of hidden component that we're not used to thinking about as consumers. So we'll go through the different types of wallet architectures and talk about the sort of issues and also advantages of certain architectures and how to mitigate any issues that there are. So just do like a brief overview of these different types, and starting with the most common one, which is browser extension wallets. Now, the biggest issue with these is malware, right? And for some reason, this isn't talked about a lot. I think, not too many people are interested in talking about this, but then people end up getting malware, losing their keys, because malware is very, very common. And encryption at rest is great, but does not solve this. Malware can still access the RAM. And actually, if you look at how operating systems handle resources, it's really scary. Every process that you're running from your user can basically access the memory from any other process. So that app or script that you downloaded a long time ago, it can see your private keys in your browser extension. Yeah, it's self-custody, but it's also custody by every software you've ever downloaded. So this is something to be aware of. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here already are aware of this. But I think there's a good reason why we need more MPC, we need more multisig. And the other is that cloud backups, maybe this is a bit controversial opinion, but I don't think they're very secure. Because essentially, yes, you have a password, making it self-custodial. But the thing is, average person selects a password of about 40 bits of entropy. For reference, Bitcoin network is doing about 2 to the 80 hashes a day. So if you have the computing power of Bitcoin network, then you can do 2 to the 40 average passwords you can crack, right? So the password isn't really protecting you that much. It's probably not the best idea if you have a lot of funds to do it that way. Now, when it comes to browser extension wallets, another thing to be careful of it is also, and I think this is actually really with all wallets, no matter how self-custodial they are, there's often a way that the developers can update it, and then as long as you're not approving the updates, it's something to be aware of. Now, it's probably a more remote issue than some of the other ones. But now let's talk about hardware wallets, because hardware wallets, I think, are considered the most secure option. And unlike browser extensions, there's no malware that can access the keys from hardware wallets. So super secure. What could go wrong? Well, we've learned that blind signing is actually a big issue with people losing a lot of money. Because even if the hardware wallet has a key secured, you're still looking at a UI to sign the transaction. Unless you're just sending somebody ETH, which you can read easily on the hardware wallet, then you're just trusting your front end to tell you what you're actually signing. So you could be signing away $10 million to an attacker without knowing it. And this has happened. And so really the solution to this is multiple wallets, like multisig, MPC, with different transaction simulations. So you can even, I guess you can even do it with one hardware wallet, but you have to make sure the transaction is really simulated on different devices, and you have like no single point of failure that's actually telling you what the transaction is. So with MPC wallets, now I think is also one of the more secure solutions like hardware wallets. I'm a very big fan of MPC myself, and I think a lot of us at this conference are. So I think as far as the issues with MPC, they're more in the implementation. Like how do you actually build an MPC wallet that's secure? It's easy to build MPC wallet that's insecure. Often you have all the shares authorized in the same way. So either authentication or authorization, happens from the same email account, for example. So this is very common architecture, and for authentication is one thing. Also transaction authorization. Do you actually know what you're signing? And you have multiple sources confirming that you're signing this. This is not trivial to actually do. The MPC is there, the cryptography is there, but how do you actually get a seamless experience to sort of, or maybe not seamless, but just a secure experience even to authenticate and authorize a transaction in multiple ways. And then we see a lot of headlines with MPC about implementation bugs. So we hear, many billions of dollars are at risk. And there are some really impressive, very complicated bugs that are found in MPC implementations. And so, I think MPC is certainly very complicated, but I do think that it's not as scary as maybe some of the headlines make it seem, because, in certain implementations, especially common ones, especially with like two-party or anything where the user has a share, you often need one of the parties to be acting against the user's interest. For example, if you have the user have a share and you have a server acting in the user's interest have a share, well, neither party can exploit it. So, it's important to have MPC libraries very well audited, but it's also important, a lot of times you can implement a sort of second wave of defense, even if there's an implementation bug. So let's talk about smart contract wallets. I think if we're talking about security, then the classic example is multisig. Multisigs are great in theory. Now, how do we actually have a secure implementation of multisig? Well, this can be kind of difficult because oftentimes, definitely users who are not security researchers will often set up, browser extension wallets that are handling most of their multisig. You can compromise it with just, compromising a couple of devices. But even if you're using hardware wallets for your signers, one thing that's very interesting that's not immediately apparent is that the front end that you're using, if that's compromised, you're doing blind signing on all your hardware devices. So, even if you're using the same front end from multiple devices, if you're using the same website to sign on your multisig, then this is a single point of failure, and it's actually a front end, not even a server. So it's something not immediately apparent that could be a little concerning. If using a multisig, I think it's important to have multiple front ends if you want to be super paranoid. And of course, the other thing with smart contract wallets is, making sure there's some second way out, or like some second line of defense in case of a smart contract bug, or use very, very, very well audited contracts. Now, embedded wallets, this is a fun topic. Now, I definitely cannot list all the issues that we might find with embedded wallet architecture. I think it can be done. Securely. I'm a little biased there, yeah. Let's just say if you want an easy way to find some criticals without a bug program to report them to, look at embedded wallets, because I think there are lots of security sacrifices that need to be made often to make embedded wallets the easy way. So trusting front ends with the private key, trusting dApps with the private key, and again, MPC or account abstraction can be used for this, but it's important they don't have a single signer. Centralized web accounts, again, can serve as a single point of failure. And now let's talk about passkeys, because I think this is an interesting point. It's not really a type of wallet, but it's definitely something that can help building secure wallets. But there are also a lot of myths about passkeys, like the idea that they are like non-custodial. I think is maybe a little misguided. They can be if we're using passkeys in the device, but usually when we're talking passkeys, we're talking something stored in iCloud that can actually be recovered somewhat easily, more easily than you might think. So by the way, I do think passkeys are great. There's a disclaimer, I'm not trying to shit on them, but I think that they're a bit less self-custodial and secure than we tend to believe in the wallet industry. Okay, so yeah, the next is a transaction simulation. This is also not a type of wallet, but I think it's a very important tool that most wallets are starting to do, and that is becoming more and more necessary. And I think one really interesting and scary thing is that it can be bypassed. You can have something that looks a certain way in a simulation that when you actually run it is different. And as far as a solution to this, I think it could be with of course, just better software to detect malicious transactions. This is always something industry is improving on. I think also more transparency into different tools like performance for transaction simulation. I think right now it's very opaque comparing different tools, seeing their performance. And also I think even on the L2 level, this is a controversial thing, but a lot of L2s have started to include this sort of stuff in their sequencer, detecting exploits and stopping them before they get included in the blockchain. My personal view is this is actually a good thing because it does sacrifice censorship resistance. But I think people can always choose: do they want L2 that's censorship resistant, or do they want one that has the ability to secure their funds better? So I think this is also a good potential solution. Okay, yeah, so thanks for listening, and stay safe out there. Make sure if you lose your money, it's because of financial stupidity rather than bad OPSEC. So with that, let's we can start the panel. I have a couple questions for these awesome panelists, but before the questions, let me just ask, can you introduce yourselves and your company?
Hi everyone, thanks for coming to the panel. I'm Dima. I'm a co-founder and CTO in SecureFi. We're an institutional MPC wallet company specializing on giving our institutional customers access to DeFi. Trying to think hard about all those difficult problems in the wallet space around security and UX, and balancing security with giving our customers access to all the on-chain stuff they need to be doing.
Hey, this is Justin. In my previous life, it was Web2 dev, but then got super excited with crypto. Got hooked by all the values of permissionlessness and just specifically DeFi, just making our whole financial system more equitable. And specifically got into crypto to fix the problem of dealing with multiple chains. And specifically, in custody, that's where still the biggest issues exist, and that's why I founded Aeon. With Aeon, we're building next generation multisig, which you can use across all chains. So imagine safe, but you can hold everything from Cosmos tokens to Story in one solution.
Hey everyone, I'm Bentzi, one of the founders of Utila, an institutional wallet provider, MPC based, and we are. I think what Dima said is very correct. We're also living in the intersection of security and user experience, and sometimes it's it cannot work together, and we are trying to maximize it. And we enable our clients to access DeFi, build stuff for payments, tokenization, etc.
Awesome. And I just realized I forgot to introduce myself as well. So I'm Nanak, I'm a co-founder of Holonym. So Holonym, we're most known for ZeroNym, which is our ID verification product using ZK proofs for private proofs of identity. And we're also building a decentralized wallet on the D-Wallet network. And this is looking to be a consumer-friendly wallet that also has very high security properties with the flexibility of a hot wallet, but security of a cold wallet. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. Diving into the questions. So look, we know that MPC can be decentralized, and it's very important for security. But often the perception of MPC in our industry is a bit different. People see it as, oh, can you just own 3 nodes that you're running MPC, and MPC can be hacked sometimes, and So how do you think we can address this as an industry?
I think in general, when you think about MPC, the way I think about it, it's that MPC is only as secure as the different type of nodes are independent on multiple layers from one another. So just you said, if you have 100 different nodes, but they're all running on the same server or owned by the same company, this would usually not add a lot of security. And so I think you really want to kind of think about how can you introduce as much independence on the different layers. So we could start from who's actually holding the share, and who's the entity. Is it a company holding one share, the user another share? Maybe there's a network of independent companies. Also diversity in terms of the devices, right? If you have a server and a mobile, maybe different types of platforms, that obviously kind of increases the difficulty for someone to compromise several nodes. I think, obviously I think we're making good progress on this. I think there's still a lot of room to improve. Specifically, I think that for a lot of the products, at the end of the day, the code that is running all of the nodes is going to come from the same spot. It's going to be the same library, and I think hopefully as the space matures and you have maybe more standardized protocols for which you could have independent implementations, independently written, independently deployed, independently audited, this would add, I think, more layers of security to MPC.
Maybe I will add from a bit of a different perspective. So I think that decentralized MPC makes a lot of sense. But on the other side, I think that for large institutions, from what we found, it's actually important to be able to call a company, to have support, to sue them maybe one day, and they will actually prefer something a bit more centralized. So I would also say that it also depends on who is the buyer and what's their philosophy on security or risk management, and this is another factor that we should think about.
I would definitely agree with that take. Specifically, our persona is also less on the super institutional side, so we're trying to go more after on-chain maxis kind of. But then again, I do think over time this will shift more and more, and the centralization and the legal wrapper of being able to sue someone can actually be built on top of fully self-custodial MPC solutions. And then on the other hand, about the question, by the way, I do think the biggest problem with MPC is not the tech, but actually the narrative. I do think there's a lot of value, especially in crypto. That's always how crypto works. If you were to create a narrative around MPC being way more secure than just having MetaMask, MPC being way better than a smart contract-based solution, then you get the hype, then you get the excitement from retail investors, and then you also get just more awareness for the space, and that it's actually that it has a lot of advantages.
Awesome. Yeah, love the different perspectives, and yeah, I honestly agree with all of them. I think for certain people, centralized MPC, as long as the nodes are different configurations, and I think it can be super super secure that way, So, okay, here's another similar issue about the narrative. Every wallet, whether it's true or not, will advertise itself as self-custodial and secure. So how do you cut through that noise as, projects that actually are building this secure, that's actually secure and actually self-custodial software?
Yeah, I mean, on our end, again, it's all about the narrative. So we do try to basically brand ourselves more as like a multisig solution in terms of people, at least from what we've learned, do think like safe is like one of the most secure custody solutions. So that's how we also try to position ourselves as one of them, kind of. Just in terms of branding wise. But then again, it's just other than that, it's most about education and providing as much transparency on all the tech involved as possible for people who are interested in this. But then on the other hand, for people who are not, just having a very, very simple interface for them to interact with your tech.
I think that in the end of the day, it's more than just the key management also, in my opinion. It's also about other things like the policy management, for example. So I do think that at the end of the day, the security is not necessarily only about the way the shards or the keys are managed. It's also about, even if they are secured, how do you still make sure that no one is moving the funds to the wrong address, right? Or how do you make sure that no one is interacting with the wrong smart contract? So I think it's a bit more than that, and it's not necessarily like they talk about security and self-custody. I think that the way we should look about it is more wider, from my part.
So I think on the self-custodial part, I think it's kind of boils down to two main questions. The first one is, can anyone except the owner of the funds move the funds without the user's consent and intent? And the second part, which is also very important, is can someone else kind of prevent the user from moving them funds on their own, which are not the same thing. It's something you can think about it as, security and maybe the censorship resistance. And I think as you analyze any particular solution, you need to ask yourself the question of what would it take from someone other than you to do one of those two things. So obviously a solution where all the key material is stored somewhere server side. You could imagine, a law enforcement agency or some malicious attack coming to the vendor and requesting to get all the key material, or even if the provider only holds part of the key, maybe they can ask them to, freeze the wallet or something of that form. So I think it ends up being basically asking yourself these questions: can I always move the funds unilaterally to be censorship resistant? And then also, what would it take for the vendor or whoever the wallet provider to control my funds? And I think it's always there's always going to be some path, even if you think of a truly self-custodial solution such as a MetaMask, or even we've seen the Ledger example. You always need to worry about supply chain attacks and malicious code updates and all those parts. But ideally, you want this kind of the bar to be as high as possible for these types of attacks.
And so, on this note, is there any way that the industry can sort of add more standards or accountability so that consumers can see, like what you're saying, here are the actual criteria for what it means to be self-custodial. Can we do these things for security, for self-custody, to sort of give people clear insights into what's really going on in the wallet in a way that they can understand?
Yeah. To be honest, I think I'm not sure we're there yet in terms of clear standardization or regulation of the term self-custody. I think the tech is too much evolving. We're learning more stuff about the tech, about the different attacks. So I think maybe right now this is what makes crypto not super accessible yet, because you do need to make those judgments on your own or delegate kind of to vendors or to people just on a trust basis. But so I don't think that we're quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also MPC specifically is not standardized today. There are different implementations. It's still evolving. And I also think that in the end of the day, maybe trying to add more standardization, maybe more like new certifications that are more around custody. I think there is a C4 that are trying to do some stuff there. There are some other things. So creating more like alliances and etc. Maybe it will add more transparency and security in a way.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Cool. Okay, so here's a fun question. So what will happen to the user funds if your company with all its data and servers is compromised?
So I think we're first of all we're doing our best for this not to happen, but of course need to think about that scenarios as well. I think some of the things that we do is to make sure we never hold part of the key material on our end, not even temporarily, not even in a way that can be decrypted by ourselves. And so number one priority is that even a full compromise of all data of all the servers would not lead to private key as being leaked to the attacker. And then on the other side, which is also mentioned, super important in terms of availability and censorship resistance. I think part of the and I think it's kind of a luxury maybe in the institutional space, because you can kind of force your customer to create a backup, and so customers have a fully self-custodied backup such that even in terms of availability, they always have like an escape hatch they can use.
Yeah, I think to answer the question just super shortly on our architecture, so we're also using the wallet network in the background. Just super short explanation of that. So in the end, it's like I don't know if you did that in the beginning, but like the wallet network is like an MPC network, but then the user also has to co-sign any transaction, which means that with the nature of this algorithm, the nodes could never steal the user's funds without the user's approval, like cryptographically secured. On the other hand, as the MPC network is decentralized, there's also the availability it's solved for, because like it's basically censorship resistant. So that's basically about the custody tech we're using, and then our like policy engine, user management, like vaults, whatever you want to add, like all of that is completely on-chain, meaning that if our services go down, if our front end goes down, you could actually still access the like fully fledged product by just like doing a transaction on-chain. So yeah, like even if our front end was compromised, your policy engine, for example, would still be fully intact because it's like on-chain and not in our service.
I have not a lot to add, like besides of saying that we are trying our best, that these kind of things will not happen, and in the end of the day, we never hold in any point of time the full private key, right? So I think this is like already like one way to protect the user in any case something like that happens. And besides that, there is the policy engine. There are like, it's more than just again the key management. That's only like one part of the security that we provide. So there are more security layers that should also prevent some kind of things. So.
Awesome. And so in the presentation, I talked a little bit about transaction simulation. I think this is both going to be very helpful for security in general, just with policy engines, preventing bad transactions from going through. But also, there's starting to be a concern that they can be bypassed, and there's always a game of cat and mouse between catching these malicious transactions and making more clever malicious transactions. Do you think there are any solutions that exist? I covered a couple potential ones, but just looking for any other ideas you may have or solutions you've seen.
So I think we definitely need to have more research into like the more systematic research on the bypass techniques and kind of systemize that knowledge. I think it's important to remember there's also like in terms of the threat model, it's important to separate between discrepancies you can cause between net simulation time and execution time, given let's say a malicious contract. because that would usually fall, I would say, outside of the threat model, because if you're like interacting with a malicious contract, even after doing the transaction, all bets are off. To distinguish between that and somehow the attacker being able to trick the user into a bad simulation with an honest contract. And I think like for that, I think like one pitfall is that, especially if you look at the landscape of different EVM chains, there are like quite a lot of differences and quirks between the different chains, which sometimes generic simulation techniques don't always capture. And in the best, in a good scenario, this can just cause a failure. In the bad scenario, it can cause like actual discrepancies. And so I think like I would say that the solution should become one, to trying to better map and do like better research on this stuff, and also make the tech more robust and more capture more accurately the on-chain execution environment.
Yeah, I generally agree with everything Dima said. I guess one thing to add, like we at Aeon, we're like super big fans of Move, and I think in the future actually this could also be solved by just having like an execution environment, or I guess more traction of execution environments, like completely written in Move, for example, or like written for Move, because they are like basically you have to specify all the inputs into a transaction, and you don't run into this problem of basically having to simulate the transaction in these like complicated ways as we have to do it right now for like Ethereum and all the other EVM chains.
Cool. These were really interesting responses. I think, these are good solutions. But pretty cool if people move more. Would solve a lot of issues. Okay, so if you're okay sharing, what's your personal wallet OPSEC?
Yeah, happy to get started. So yeah, I mean, most of my funds are in cold storage. And like I'm super scared of my seed phrase management. So specifically, I like ripped it in two pieces to have like a multisig functionality, because I didn't feel comfortable just storing it in one place. And that's like the main, like one of the main reasons why we're also building Aeon. Like I do think once you have a certain level of funds, you do want to have like multisig in one way or another. And yeah, like if you were to have like a ledger as a signer, as well as your mobile phone, as well as a hot wallet, you could create like policies around like how much can be spent by like how many, like 3 out of 5, 2 out of 3 or whatever signers. And you get like way more sophistication than I personally can do it right now.
Maybe something interesting. We are selling mostly to businesses, like institutions, funds, groups of people managing crypto. But we do have some clients who are actually individuals that are prop trading, and they manage a lot of money, and they just want to use an institutional grade wallet solution. They even set policies on some stuff, etc. So maybe connecting to your point, we do some individuals even using Utila, and some of them are even large clients, which is interesting. It's something I didn't expect. About myself personally, so it's mostly around cold storage and some scripts for the other side of it. I also recently just played a bit with the Telegram wallet. This is interesting. What's happening right now in Ton. But when I started Utila, my co-founder and myself decided that we are moving most of our crypto assets outside, because we are betting too much in crypto now. We are opening a company, so yeah.
So I think like one thing I've learned in crypto, there's an unlimited amount of paranoia that you can apply to your personal OPSEC, and I think it's important. Like I think a lot of us get questions from people we know, so I think it's always good like to kind of match the solution to the amount of risk, like the technical capabilities of the user, and strike a good balance between these. I think like a couple of things I think you kind of really laid out very well, like the different kind of solutions. Like one thing where I'm not sure I agree actually is that I think that the iCloud type solutions are actually not as bad as, at least I don't consider them as bad, because at the end of the day, we're all like startups. We're a security expert, invest in security, but I think it's kind of hard to beat the Apple and the amount of resources and expertise they're going to put into protecting your different kind of secrets that you're storing in iCloud. So I think I would definitely not rule it out. Even the kind of passkey solutions that are back to iCloud, because again, a well-secured iCloud account with 2FA and those kind of methods, I would argue I would say it's a very good solution, and I think Apple are very well incentivized to protect your passwords and other secrets, even compared to more boutique companies. I would definitely stay away from like desktop and browser wallets. I think that even a mobile wallet really using a secure enclave or a passkey solution sidesteps a lot of the problems with malware, because you do have a better OS guarantees. And you think if you add on top of it like let's say a hardware wallet, like a ledger for the actual signing, I think you get a pretty decent solution where you get, let's say, the simulation and all the stuff running on a mobile device, which is better than on desktop, and then you are still protected from key theft using that hardware wallet. So I would say that's kind of how I view the space, and never and always think about the backup. That's always a thing you need to remember.
Yeah, those are great points, and I agree. I think if you set up your iCloud account well with 2FA, then that is pretty good backup method for the average person. Mobile phones, that's also one category I didn't mention. And the sandboxing is pretty good. You're not going to get nearly as much of a risk with malware on a mobile phone as on a desktop. So I think for average person, if you're not storing like a lot of money, I think that's pretty solid. Yeah, I tend to agree. Even though my slides were definitely on the paranoid side, I think this is a good happy middle ground combination of like UX and security. So now one more question. What do you think are the major risks behind key management, and how can these risks be mitigated?
Yeah, I guess what I already mentioned for the last question. So I do think backing up your private key or your wallet to have redundancy, but then on the other hand also being sure that none of these backups gets hacked or gets stolen in the case of seed phrases. I guess these are the two big risks, and the main solution for this, if you are sophisticated and hold sufficient amount of funds, is to have some kind of multisig solution for this in one way or another, using MPC, using smart accounts, whatever, because then you can add more redundancy as you need. Then you can add policies so that if something gets lost, that not all of your funds can be stolen.
Beside of backup, maybe I will add another risk. In the end of the day, so there is the layer of the key management, there is the layer of the policy engine, but there is also the layer of let's call it post-transaction, which is very relevant. For example, in DeFi, and what we see there is the risk of even after you decided that you are putting some stuff in some pool, and then this thing is getting compromised. What are you doing then? So this is another risk layer that we're also looking at, and I think that there are some interesting solutions coming out of it, the ability to automatically, I would say, withdraw funds from some decentralized application when there is something bad happens, right? So I would say I would just maybe not answer directly the question, but I will add another area of risk that we see more and more recently, and I believe that some of the institutional grade wallets, they will add capabilities around this new risk area, together with some on-chain security partners or developing everything in-house.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of interesting research to be done. Even when it's controlled by a smart contract, well, if you can get the funds out in time, then if your wallet can help you do that in a self-custodial way, or even a custodial way, then I think I would like to see more wallets exploring this. I'm glad that you guys are.
You need to take care of false positives, false negative, but yeah, the general idea I think makes sense, and I think we'll see more solutions there.
Cool. Well, I think we are over time, but yeah, thank you all for joining as panelists, and thank you all for hearing everybody talk, and yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you all.